Hi there guys, Mark here once again calling in from the French Alps for this week's Future of Travel episode. As you can see, autumn is starting to hit and we've got a lovely signpost behind us. This is the one of the great walks through the mountains, goes all the way down the Alps from Switzerland through to the coast right into Italy, the Compostela, and it goes through, you know, effectively people's backyards, like the backyard of our gîte here, our farm. And we're on the intersection with some neighbours. You can see the neighbours have all come out to see us today. Very interesting, some lovely cows. Anybody used to cows in Australia don't often see cows this quiet all the time. I don't know what they're doing around here, but they're really quite curious and good looking cows. Now, I don't know whether these cows are going to be used for beef, because some of the cows in this district actually their leather gets used to make handbags for Hermes. About 10 minutes drive down the road is a Hermes factory where they're making the handbags and clutch bags and things like that. So there's a little bit of a very upmarket, elusive trade here in fine animal skins, like maybe these cattle we're seeing behind us. I have my trusty companion with me, Dakar. Dakar, say hello. Say hello to everybody. Good boy. He's come to help us as we wander down the roads. So these little tracks, you can see that I'm just walking backwards here. Just through the forests. Very nice way to live. Very nice way to enjoy working. We're surrounded by them here. It's really quite a pleasant place. In fact, we went on a big 7 or 8 kilometre walk the other day, barely hitting a town, right along the ridge line of the Rhone River, having a look at the mountains in the background, all covered in snow from the dump last week, and little country towns, little hamlets, I guess, you know, 5 or 6 houses here and there, nothing really much happening, and classic old stone huts and farmhouses littered through here. In fact, one of the ones up the road here we've been visiting quite a bit was used in the Second World War. It was a hangout for some Slovenian rebel fighters that came and joined the resistance here in France to fight against the Nazis. The Nazis invaded through the mountains around here. There's some relatively easy passes to get through. And in fact, there is a Nazi warplane in the lake on the other side of Dent-le-Chat. Other side of Dent-le-Chat, that mountain behind us, is Lake Bourget. And Lake Bourget is the largest lake in France. And there is a very nice dive, about 100 metres down, quite a deep dive, on a Nazi-era warplane that was doing some scouting out and lost control and didn't get much further than the lake. So it's quite a popular place around here for all sorts of activities, and some that you might not even have normally associated with, because, put it this way, mainstream tourism, it talks about the main things: snow season, boating on the lake, that sort of stuff. And they forget about the little things that history have shown us. And that's sort of a bit of a theme for today, because as we travel the world as nomads, we don't necessarily want to be heading into places where the mainstream is going. We don't want to go into crowds. It's not really our thing. We want to go and explore people. So this district around us, you know, it's settled 400 years pretty much. The same farmers have been in the district. The common names all through the little hamlets and towns, cousins, nephews, uncles, grandfathers, all of that from the locals all still dot these towns. It's very European to have such long history and people still living in the district. And of course they're changing their business, they've innovated. So instead of just growing a few cattle here and there, you know, ones like those fellas back there, well, they might be used for $50,000, $100,000 leather bags these days. The town behind us, which just beyond the ridgeline there, you know, it no longer just grows a few chickens. They're actually a major hatchery for chicken farmers and other chickens industry around here. So they've become specialised, but in the same agriculture. So that leads us into out exploring the world. So let's have a look at what's been happening this week. Have you seen that there's some trials of a new app going on? The trial's being done by Cathay Pacific and United Airlines out of the US, and the app is called CommonPass, and it's a app that you can use around the world, accepted at the airports, border crossings, and a number of these airlines in trials, which is going to keep your health record and a copy of your reviews and your surveys and your stats from the tests and things you've done. It's sort of been accelerated through the use of, through the incidence of the COVID and the use of testing a lot more by countries. There's another country just opened up, St Kitts and Nevis. They're in the Caribbean. They are welcoming Americans in. Great news for Americans who've been sort of left out on a lot of travel opportunities, but they're in the Caribbean. They're getting to visit now, as long as you've had these tests, the PCR tests. So you need a test 72 hours before you arrive and then get another one afterwards. We were just doing some research yesterday for some clients heading down to Sicily, and not quite as tough down there. You know, the tests are certainly still desired, but you're going to have to register. Being an island, it's a little bit easier to track people. And so Sicily is letting a lot of people in and keeping a very good track on things. I think they had something like under 500 infections even over the last 6 months. So doing very well in some of these very easily managed locations. Other parts of the world, not really doing well. Numbers here in France have been going through the roof. I think they hit nearly 27,000 new infections yesterday. But still good news, not many people dying anymore from this. And a lot of these infections are very much related to the big cities. So we have big cities in lockdown. Paris, Marseille, Lyon are the big three. So the cafes, the restaurants, things like that, they're struggling. Yet here we are, an hour away, sitting there at the restaurants with our masks, getting in and out, not obviously while we're eating, and enjoying lovely lunches and normal way of life. Just again looked at some stats in the local area, our prefecture, sort of a small state by other standards, about 500,000 people in our region. There is currently one person in hospital. So yeah, pretty good numbers. And so very good tracking going on here in Europe, in Western Europe particularly, on getting on top of things. Other parts of the world, the tracking and tracing is getting better. Australia is getting better. Certainly New South Wales is showing the way down there, back in my home country. The testing of sewage water is also very popular in Australia. And even there in Queensland, I noticed they were finding isolated coronavirus in places like Townsville and Rockhampton, even though there's been no tests of anybody with any coronavirus there. It's still circulating around the place. Australians, fingers crossed you're going to get some travel bubbles soon, hopefully by Christmas. New Zealand still very much locked down, very tight, getting in and out of New Zealand. The New Zealand government is letting the Kiwis back in, but no Aussies visiting. But Aussies, you might be able to get into Singapore. So the Singapore government has produced a new travel bubble scheme to allow certain countries and certain people to come in and stay. At the moment, Singapore is just letting transit people pass through the airports onto the next location. But if you're part of these bubble countries, you could probably stay. So a shopping trip to Singapore is probably going to be back on the trip option soon for Australians. I think they're waiting on the Australian government from what I've been hearing. Really interesting thing, the use of vending machines is growing around the world. Hotels, resorts, things like this are getting into vending machines. Now, we used the vending machine yesterday. In this valley behind us, there's a lovely cooperative cheese factory, and they sell cheese, the Savoy Tom. If you ever want to look at the best Tom in the world, look at the Savoy Tom. The Savoy Tom made at the cooperative, about 3 k's behind me, has a vending machine. So if you turn up at 6 o'clock on a Sunday night, as we did, put your money in and off you run. But vending machines are starting to become dragged out of the back rooms of hotels and put into the foyers to allow this arm's length purchasing, non-human connection going on. Obviously a lot easier to wipe down regularly with the the cleaning fluids and so forth by the hotel staff. And so vending machines are starting to pop up all around the world. So it's a new thing. It's going to be really interesting to sort of see how long it lasts as the pandemic gets more and more under control. What do we got? On the negative, Madrid going into a state of emergency. It's a bit of a false start there for Madrid. The government put them into a heightened lockdown about 2 weeks ago. It went to court, they lost and got opened. So the federal government of Spain, the national government, had to implement some states of emergency to get them to lock down because of the spreading of the disease. Now, as you can see, I'm starting to wear my jacket. It's starting to cool off here in Europe. Trees are all changing. Today, probably 13, 14 degrees centigrade. And it's driving people indoors. Indoors, lack of fresh air, lack of moving air, all those sorts of things are going to increase the spreading of the disease, and they're certainly noticing it in places like Madrid. Not necessarily coupled, but over there in Central Asia, in Kyrgyzstan, there's been a lot of riots occurring and disturbances around elections. May or may not be related to the pressure of the coronavirus, but there is now a curfew between 9 o'clock and 5 a.m. Just to double check that. Yep, 9 o'clock at night, 5 a.m. in Bishkek, the capital of Kyrgyzstan. Great location, Central Asia, really interesting place. If any of you have sort of looked to go and explore the Silk Road, it's one of those magical areas. But with all this unrest and gunfire and things like this, it's a little bit dicey at the moment, so maybe keep away from crowds in the street and keep yourself safe while you go out exploring. Good news is there's lots of other little towns around you go and exploring, lots of nature. Tangshan Mountains with China and the borders with Kazakhstan not so far away, and then down to Uzbekistan if you're going to travel down the Silk Road. You'll be at the end of the season, it's starting to get a bit snowy, but there's still a few people out there doing that. Okay, Israel, another country going into a bit of a lockdown. Coronavirus is spreading heavily, and so pubs, restaurants, things like that are being shut down. Masks everywhere in most of the world. A few places, Australia, New Zealand, that you don't see many masks, but pretty much masks are everywhere around the world. And it seems to be working quite well in a number of locations. Of course, the media is making a big story out of the US, the Russian, Iranian, sort of Indian breakouts at the moment, but luckily it doesn't necessarily mean it's going everywhere. Many places are doing quite well and managing quite well. Tracking and tracing, very clearly the option that's working the best. Hence, tests before you're crossing borders, becoming the new norm. Tests before you're getting onto planes. Tests to show to the airport and border control. Make that app I mentioned before really going to be useful in the next few months, if not years. Okay, bit more business news. So whether it's been brought on by Corona or not, but the Europeans have accelerated their investigation in setting up a digital version of the euro. No mention of it being a true cryptocurrency, or whether it's just a digital version of the fiat currency, but they're accelerating the use of this as a currency, and obviously that helps a lot of micro payments and small payments when there are not the big banking fees associated with it. So that kicked off this week, maybe in light of the competition from Libra, the Facebook currency, which has been touted about over the last 18 months, and seems to be gathering some momentum. Anyway, the governments are saying, well, I think monetary policy, monetary issues need to be in control of governments, not private, and so you've got this competition going on at the moment. It's going to be interesting to see this one play out for the next couple of years. Golden visas. The Portugal golden visa, it's been wonderful news for 10 or 15 years now, where you can become a resident and later a citizen of Portugal by investing something as little as €250,000. Well, that has started to be wound back in Lisbon and Porto, two big cities in Portugal. They've now been excluded by the government from the golden visa regime. So you won't be able to keep that going in your investments in those places anytime soon. They're starting to cut back on it. A lot of pressure, I think, is that the Cypriot golden visa as well is under a lot of attention by the EU. Okay, more good news. More good news for the environment. Europe's largest marine protected area has just been rolled out along the coast of Scotland. Oops, and I'm going to have to move because, as you can see, there is a tractor coming to run me over. So I'll just move up into the paddock here. So, Europe's largest marine protected zone rolling out in Scotland. It's going to be really good for the fish life and all that marine life around the UK, particularly as things go into Brexit. Bonjour! Little old farmer. He must be about 90, not out. He's probably been up there feeding his cattle that we were looking at before. Okay, 1 second. Come! Come over here. Come here. Sit. And we got some more neighbours just walking around with the dog and so forth. So. Free. Off you go. D'accord. Sit.
Oh la la.
Sit.
Viens ici, Nina.
Sit. Oh, look, gotta go.
Viens ici, Nina. Nina.
Okay, thanks for that. Back again. The neighbours walking through and dogs were playing around a little bit too roughly. Anyway, they took a while to catch the young female that just wanted to go and play. Anyway, let's have a look at the last little bit here. So, good news about Nomad Stays. We've got more and more places coming on board at the moment. I just saw a place in the Czech Republic down now around Brno just coming online. A couple of places in Croatia opening. The Sicily one I'm mentioning. Got a new place in Japan. We're just trying to hurry them up and get them online. So, you know, out of the way sort of places, islands, places you'll have fun, not necessarily with large amounts of crowds. So that's all good news. Our visitation, our business is picking up very nicely. People said Corona has been bad on business. It has been for some, but for us, I think we've increased about 400% this year. So head on over to Nomad Stays, check out, join up as a membership. We've got our newsletters finally starting to head out and tell you about places around the world. This week we gave a bit of an insight into Tbilisi in Georgia. Lovely city, Tbilisi. They're over in the edge of the Caucasus Mountains. Beautiful country, massive history, inexpensive, 12-month visa, Nomad visa if you're heading that way. Really worthwhile checking out and exploring for a while. Some of the oldest history, particularly church history and monasteries and so forth in the world. It's a truly awe-inspiring place that nobody really reads about in mainstream news, if there is something as mainstream news anymore. Probably the only other thing I'm going to wrap up with today is stay well, keep fit. Make sure you get out, lots of fresh air, get some exercise. Hope you get to enjoy the beautiful weather like we're enjoying here in the Alps. And we'll see you soon. Bye for now.